I walked into the office after my 3-day regional training, feeling lighter than I had in months. The quarterly numbers were excellent. Our project deadlines had all been met ahead of schedule, and I'd even managed to secure additional budget for team equipment upgrades. The moment I stepped off the elevator, something felt wrong. The usual Monday morning buzz was missing from our department floor. The East Wing corridor where my team of 7 brilliant engineers worked was eerily quiet. "Ashley!" I called out, looking for our lead developer, who was always first to arrive. No answer. Our workspace, the one we'd earned after delivering 3 consecutive breakthrough projects, stood empty. Desks cleared, monitors gone, even the coffee machine we'd bought with our own money was missing. Only rectangular dust outlines remained where our equipment had been. My name is Wayne Sullivan, 51 years old, and I've been with this company for 17 years, leading this particular engineering team for the last 8. Before joining the corporate world, I spent 8 years as a Navy communications officer, managing technical crews under impossible conditions. That military training taught me to stay calm under pressure and think strategically when things go sideways. I spotted Kevin from accounting walking past. "Hey, what happened to my team?" His expression shifted to something resembling pity. "You should check the basement. They moved them yesterday." The basement? We didn't even have office space in the basement. The elevator ride down felt eternal. Each floor passing by heightened my dread. When the doors opened, I had to navigate through storage areas and maintenance rooms before finding a door with a hastily printed sign, Engineering Team B. I pushed it open to find my team huddled between exposed pipes and utility boxes. Their monitors balanced precariously on folding tables. Extension cords snaked across the concrete floor. Water dripped from a ceiling pipe, landing with rhythmic plunks into a bucket near Ashley's makeshift desk. "What happened?" I asked, though their downcast faces told me everything. Ashley looked up, her eyes burning with humiliation. "While you were gone, Scott came down with movers. Said we needed to relocate immediately to make room for the new specialist. We had 30 minutes to pack everything." "A specialist? What specialist?" Nicole, our youngest developer, added. "Scott says he's going to revolutionize the whole department." I climbed back upstairs to our former workspace. Bright, airy, strategically positioned between the testing lab and design team. Now it housed a single person, a young man arranging framed certificates on what used to be my desk, while Scott Rivera, our department head of 6 months, hovered nearby with an expression of unbridled admiration. "Ah, there you are," Scott exclaimed when he spotted me. "Meet Maxwell Park, our new digital transformation specialist." His revolutionary approach increased efficiency by 85% at his last company. He needs proper space to implement his vision. He lowered his voice. "Your team can manage downstairs until next quarter's budget review." I stared at Maxwell, who didn't even pause arranging his awards to acknowledge me. I nodded silently and returned to the basement where my team waited, the distant hum of industrial machinery vibrating through the walls. The Wi-Fi signal barely reached down here. The nearest bathroom was a single toilet behind a shower curtain. The air smelled of mildew and defeat. 17 years with this company," muttered Brian, our hardware specialist, "and this is how they treat us." I surveyed their dejected faces. People who had given everything to this company, who had pulled countless all-nighters to meet impossible deadlines, now stuffed in a basement like unwanted furniture. Then I smiled calmly. "Pack your bags," I said. "Not just for down here, everything." They stared, confused but trusting. I held their gaze, my smile never wavering. "Trust me. Just start quietly gathering everything you might want to take with you someday, and keep this conversation between us." Until that basement moment, I'd been the loyal, dependable leader of Engineering Team B for 8 years. Before joining the company, I'd spent those Navy years building relationships across the defense contracting world while managing complex technical projects under extreme pressure. The company had hired me for my technical knowledge, unaware that I'd spent those years developing a network that spanned half the Fortune 500. I wasn't just good at solving technical problems. I excelled at solving human ones. When I transitioned to corporate life, I brought those skills with me. I could spot talent in unlikely places and build cohesion among wildly different personalities. Each member of my team had been handpicked not just for their technical brilliance, but for their ability to solve problems under extreme pressure. Ashley, our lead developer, had been rejected by 3 other companies because of her unfiltered communication style before I recognized her genius with complex systems. Nicole, fresh out of college but with natural talent for finding elegant solutions, had been passed over for higher-profile graduates. Brian had been ready to retire when I convinced him his hardware expertise was irreplaceable. Then there was Jordan, our quietest member who spoke 5 programming languages but struggled with human ones. Rachel, whose testing protocols had become industry standard. Justin, whose security systems were impenetrable. And Kevin, who could translate technical requirements into language anyone could understand. For these 8 years, we delivered consistently excellent results without fanfare. We weren't the flashiest team, but executives knew we were the ones to call when they needed something impossible done reliably. 6 months earlier, our longtime department head retired, and Scott arrived with grand ambitions but zero understanding of our work. From day one, he'd been hunting for a DCI game changer to impress executives, ignoring our consistent results in favor of flashy innovations. His golden hire, Maxwell, had dazzled him with buzzword-filled presentations and promises of revolutionary methods. What Scott never investigated was why someone with such transformative skills had worked at 4 different companies in just 3 years. For the next month after the basement relocation, we worked from our exile in what I can only describe as industrial purgatory. The conditions were beyond abysmal. The temperature fluctuated wildly, freezing in the morning, stifling by afternoon. The fluorescent lighting flickered constantly, giving everyone headaches. And twice we had to cover all our equipment with plastic tarps during overhead pipe leaks. Yet my team followed my quiet instructions without question. We began archiving every project we'd ever worked on, organizing knowledge bases with military precision, creating detailed transition guides, while continuing our assigned tasks without a single complaint. You learn a lot about people when they're pushed to their limits. My team didn't just endure, they thrived in adversity, just like I'd trained them to. "I don't understand why we're documenting everything so meticulously," Jordan whispered one afternoon, adjusting his monitor for the 3rd time as water dripped nearby. "It's not like they appreciate our work anyway." "Everything we do should be done with integrity," I replied loud enough for everyone to hear, no matter where we do it. The others exchanged glances but kept working. They trusted me even when they didn't understand my reasoning. That's what 8 years of leadership builds. Not blind obedience, but earned trust. During these weeks, I was making calls. Not obvious ones. I'm not stupid enough to job hunt from company phones. But during lunch breaks, evening hours, weekend time, I was reaching out to connections I'd built over 25 years in this industry. You don't serve in the Navy and then work corporate engineering for 2 decades without accumulating some serious contacts. The first call was to Jessica Carter, a former colleague who'd left our company 5 years ago to become CEO of a mid-sized engineering firm. We'd worked together on a DoD contract that saved both our careers back in the day. Jessica was Navy too, submarine service, and we had that unspoken understanding that comes from shared military experience. "Wayne Sullivan," she said when she picked up. "It's been too long. How's life in the corporate machine treating you?" "Could be better, Jess. Got a few minutes to catch up?" That first conversation was just reconnection. We talked about family, mutual acquaintances, industry trends. But I planted seeds about my team's capabilities and some of the interesting management decisions happening at my company. Jessica was smart enough to read between the lines. 2 weeks later, I called her back. This time, I was more direct. "Remember that conversation we had about management styles? Well, things have gotten more interesting on my end." "Interesting how?" "Let's just say my team of 7 specialists is currently working out of a basement with leaky pipes while our new department head showcases his golden hire in our former workspace." Long pause. "That sounds like a massive waste of talent." That's what I thought. Hypothetically speaking, if a proven team with 17 years of company institutional knowledge and 8 years of flawless project delivery became available, would that interest anyone you know? Hypothetically, I'd say that would interest me very much. Want to grab coffee this weekend? Meanwhile, back in the basement, my team was starting to crack. Not from the work. We'd always been able to handle impossible technical challenges, but the psychological warfare was taking its toll. Nicole, who'd torn up 1 resignation letter already, was writing another. Brian kept muttering about his 30-year career and questioning whether he should just retire early. Even Ashley, our toughest personality, was showing signs of defeat. "This is deliberate," she said one evening as we worked late to meet another unrealistic deadline Scott had imposed. "They want us to quit. That way they don't have to pay severance or deal with any legal issues." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe they just don't understand what they have. Either way, we're the ones suffering." She was right, and I knew it. That's when I decided to accelerate my timeline. The third week of our basement exile, something unexpected happened. Amanda Richards, our CEO, called me directly. Not through Scott, not through HR, directly to my desk phone in the basement. "Wayne, I need you to present your team's accomplishments at next month's board meeting. I want a comprehensive overview of your projects from the past 2 years." My team's spirits lifted immediately. Finally, recognition from the top, someone who understood our value. "Absolutely, Amanda. I'll prepare a detailed presentation highlighting our contributions and future capabilities." "Good. Scott mentioned some resistance to new methodologies, but I want to hear your perspective." After I hung up, the mood in the basement shifted. Maybe things were turning around. Maybe this whole basement situation really was temporary, while they figured out proper space allocation. I let them hope for a few days while I prepared the presentation, but I also kept working my back channel with Jessica. Our coffee meeting had gone extremely well. She'd offered preliminary terms that were 50% above our current salaries, proper working conditions, and full autonomy to build an engineering division from the ground up. "The only question," she'd said, "is timing. I need to present this to my board, get approvals, work out the legal details. How long can your team hold out in their current situation?" "Long enough," I'd told her, "but not indefinitely. These are good people who deserve better. Military good or corporate good? Military good." That was all she needed to hear. Jessica understood that distinction. The morning of the board presentation arrived 4 weeks after our basement relocation. I dressed in my best suit and carefully reviewed my slides one final time in the dim basement lighting. Everything was documented with precision: project timelines, cost savings, innovation metrics, client satisfaction scores. 2 decades of corporate experience had taught me that executives respond to data, not emotions. As I climbed the stairs to the executive floor, my phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Board-approved preliminary discussions. Waiting for your signal." I was ready to present our case to the company leadership, to fight for my team's proper recognition. What I wasn't prepared for was Scott Rivera intercepting me in the stairwell, his face wearing an expression I'd seen before in military briefings, the look of someone about to deliver bad news while pretending it's good news. "Wayne," he said, blocking my path to the boardroom. "Change of plans." "Change of plans," Scott said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "The board wants to hear about future innovations, not past performance. Maxwell will present instead." "But Amanda specifically requested our team's presentation," I said, keeping my voice level. "I spoke with her this morning. She agrees my approach makes more sense." He straightened his tie with nervous energy. "The board needs to hear about where we're going, not where we've been. You can go back to your workspace." My workspace. The basement with leaking pipes and folding tables. I nodded silently and returned to deliver the news. My team's faces fell when I explained what happened. The hope that had sustained them for weeks crumbled in real time. Nicole stared at her computer screen, where I could see the draft of another resignation letter. "So, this is it? We're just giving up?" "Not yet," I replied, my voice steady. "Keep documenting everything, and keep packing quietly." An hour later, word spread through the company grapevine that Maxwell's presentation had bombed spectacularly. Board members had asked technical questions he couldn't answer, basic engineering concepts that any freshman would know. His 85% efficiency improvement claims fell apart under scrutiny when they asked for specific metrics and implementation details. Scott spent the rest of the day in damage control mode, promising the board that our team would implement Maxwell's concepts despite their natural resistance to change. The phrase made its way back to us through the usual office gossip channels. Natural resistance to change. As if 17 years of adapting to new technologies, methodologies, and market demands meant nothing. That afternoon, Scott visited our basement for the first time since the relocation. Gone was the confident swagger. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his typically immaculate shirt was wrinkled. "Good news," he announced with forced enthusiasm. "We're considering moving you back upstairs to the West Wing. Should happen within the next month." The West Wing. Anyone who'd worked here longer than 6 months knew that was corporate speak for the place where we put teams we're planning to eliminate. Slightly better than the basement, but still a demotion from our original prime real estate. "Thank you for recognizing our value," I said, which seemed to confuse both Scott and my team. They expected anger or sarcasm. Instead, I gave him what every corporate manager craves: apparent compliance. Hope flickered again in my teammates' eyes. Maybe the West Wing would be acceptable. Maybe things really were improving. I said nothing to confirm or deny their optimism. Some plans require patience. 2 days later, I invited Jessica to tour our facility. We'd been in preliminary discussions for 5 weeks now, and she wanted to see our operation firsthand before presenting a formal proposal to her board. As we walked through departments, I deliberately timed our arrival at the executive floor for when I knew Scott would be hosting potential clients. Tech Forward Solutions, a consulting firm interested in Maxwell's transformation methodology. "Wayne!" Scott called out when he spotted us, his voice too loud and too friendly. Perfect timing. "Come meet Tech Forward's executive team. They're interested in Maxwell's digital transformation system." I approached with Jessica in tow. "This is my colleague, Jessica Carter, CEO of Sterling Engineering Solutions." Scott's eyes lit up at the word CEO. He eagerly introduced Jessica to Maxwell, who launched into his rehearsed presentation about revolutionary workplace methodologies and paradigm-shifting efficiency gains. "Fascinating approach," Jessica said when he finished, her submarine commander voice giving nothing away. "You've used this successfully elsewhere?" "Absolutely. My methods boosted efficiency dramatically at my previous companies. Northwest Technologies saw an 85% productivity increase in just 1 quarter. "Interesting," she replied, her tone cooling. "I sit on the advisory board of Northwest Technologies. We never recorded such improvements. In fact, we documented significant project delays and cost overruns during your tenure there." The conference room went silent. Maxwell's confident smile faltered like a bad connection dropping. "There must be some confusion," Scott began, his face cycling through emotions. "No confusion," I interjected smoothly. "Jessica is here because I accepted her job offer yesterday. I'm bringing my team to establish a new engineering division at Sterling. We start in 2 weeks. The Tech Forward executives began gathering their things, suddenly remembering urgent appointments elsewhere. Maxwell's transformation presentation had transformed into a career-ending embarrassment. "You can't take your team," Scott sputtered. That's poaching. It's unethical." "But completely legal," I finished for him. "I've checked our contracts thoroughly, no non-compete clauses for technical staff. You relocated us to a basement with safety violations while allocating prime resources to unproven methodologies. Jessica is offering us 50% salary increases and proper working conditions. The board had preliminary discussions yesterday," Jessica added, "after reviewing your division's performance metrics against industry standards. They're very interested in acquiring proven talent." Scott's professional veneer finally cracked completely. "Wait, please. The West Wing renovation starts next week. I can match their salary offers." I looked at him with the same calm expression I'd maintained since finding my team in that basement 6 weeks ago. Too late. When only Scott, Maxwell, and I remained in the room, Scott turned on me with desperation, replacing his earlier panic. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he hissed. "I vouched for Maxwell. The board was already questioning my judgment. If your entire team leaves..." "You chose him over us," I said simply. "Actions have consequences." As I moved toward the door, Scott grabbed my arm. Military training kicked in. I looked at his hand until he released me. "Please, I made a mistake. I see that now. What will it take for you to stay? You know what's interesting about military service?" I said quietly. "You learn that true leadership isn't about having the flashiest ideas or the most impressive presentations. It's about taking care of your people when times get tough. You showed us exactly who you are when you put us in that basement." I walked out, leaving Scott standing there with his golden hire, both of them finally understanding that competence beats charisma every time. Back in the basement, my team waited anxiously for news about the executive meeting. When I returned to the basement, my team looked up from their workstations with expressions ranging from hopeful to terrified. 6 weeks of uncertainty had taken its toll, but they still trusted me enough to wait for an explanation. "Well?" Ashley asked, unable to contain herself any longer. I closed the door behind me and surveyed the room one final time. The exposed pipes, the folding tables, the bucket still catching drips from the leaky ceiling. Old habits from military briefings made me check for potential listeners before delivering sensitive information. "It's done," I said. "Jessica offered us all positions at Sterling Engineering. 50% salary increases, proper equipment, and a real office with windows that actually open. We start in 2 weeks." The silence that followed was profound. Then Nicole let out a whoop that echoed off the concrete walls, followed by Brian's gruff laughter and Ashley's relieved curse word that I won't repeat here. "Are you serious?" Kevin asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "After all this time in corporate hell, we're actually getting out?" "Completely serious. Contracts are being finalized as we speak." What followed was the kind of emotional release you see when people who've been carrying impossible weight finally get to set it down. Hugs exchanged, tears wiped away discreetly. These weren't just colleagues anymore. They were family, bonded by shared struggle and mutual respect. "I knew you had something planned," Rachel said, squeezing my shoulder. "But how did you manage this so quickly? The timing seems almost too perfect." I sat on the edge of a folding table that had served as someone's desk for 6 weeks. It wasn't quick, and it wasn't coincidence. I've been building relationships in this industry for 25 years. When things started going south here, those connections became insurance policies. Jordan, always the most analytical despite his social awkwardness, studied my face. "There's more to this story than just finding us better jobs, isn't there?" The others turned to me expectantly. They deserved the full truth. Jessica and I served in the Navy during overlapping periods. Different ships, same values. When she left this company 5 years ago, she told me if I ever needed anything, call her. I finally did. "So this was always the backup plan?" Ashley asked. "One of several. Look, I learned in the military that you never go into any situation with just one option. The basement was Scott's decision, but our response was always going to be ours to control. For the next week, we operated with surgical precision. Every project was documented to military standards. Every process was mapped and explained. Every system was tested and verified. We worked longer hours than necessary, but for the first time in 6 weeks, we were working towards something positive instead of just enduring something negative." During that final week, Scott made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. He appeared in our basement Thursday morning looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Wayne, I've spoken with Amanda directly. She's authorized me to offer your entire team a 25% raise effective immediately. We're also fast-tracking the West Wing renovation. You could be out of here by next Friday." I noticed he still didn't mention what would happen to Maxwell, who had become noticeably absent from company meetings since his presentation disaster. "That's generous, Scott, but we've already signed contracts with Sterling. Contracts can be renegotiated," he pressed. "I'm sure there are clauses." "There aren't," I interrupted gently. "Jessica's legal team made sure of that." His professional mask finally slipped completely. "Please, Wayne, I know I handled this wrong, but if I have to tell the board that our entire specialized engineering team resigned because of my management decisions..." For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Scott, the basement wasn't the real problem. It was just the symptom. The problem was that you valued flashy presentations over proven results. You chose potential over performance. Now you have to explain that choice to people who understand the difference." He left without another word, shoulders carrying the weight of decisions that had seemed so smart 6 weeks earlier. Our last day arrived with unexpected ceremony. Amanda Richards herself came down to the basement, the first time the CEO had ever visited our exile. "I want you to know this wasn't my decision," she said, surveying the deplorable conditions. "If I'd known about the basement situation sooner..." "Water under the bridge," I replied. "Sometimes these things work out for the best. Jessica's lucky to get you. All of you." She turned to address the entire team. "You've been consummate professionals throughout this entire situation. That speaks well of your character and your leadership." She looked directly at me with that last comment. 6 months later, our story had become something of a legend in local engineering circles. Sterling Engineering's new division had landed 3 major contracts in our first quarter, including one with our former company. A delicious irony that nobody mentioned directly but everyone appreciated. Scott Rivera had been quietly reassigned to a smaller division with significantly reduced responsibilities. Maxwell Park had reinvented himself as a workplace culture consultant, still selling promises to companies that hadn't learned to check references properly. As for my team, we occupied a bright, modern office space with proper equipment and actual respect from management. More importantly, we'd proven something to ourselves about resilience, loyalty, and the difference between giving up and strategic repositioning. The best revenge isn't destruction, it's construction. Building something better from the rubble of other people's mistakes. Showing the world what they lost when they chose style over substance. Sometimes the most satisfying victory is simply thriving somewhere else while your former tormentors explain to their bosses why the most productive team in the company just walked away. We didn't just survive corporate politics, we transcended them. And that's a lesson worth remembering whether you're 51 years old with 25 years of experience or 25 years old just starting to build yours. The basement taught us something valuable. Your worth isn't determined by where others put you. It's determined by what you build when you finally get the chance to build it properly.